And we are live with Jeff Adams.
Hi.
Jeff Adams, welcome to Lingofest. Thank you for making the time. Um, you, in my eyes, you are one of the legends out there, one of the pioneers in speech. And so it's an honor to be speaking with you for sure.
Well, thank you. But I think that's just a way of saying that I'm old.
No, no, not at all. I, I have dealt with other folks who are older than you or younger than you, and I can't say anything near what I just said about you. So let me just go off. Let me just go over this list here. Kurzweil Applied Intelligence, and then Leonard and House P, then Scansoft, and then Nuance, then Yap, and then Amazon. Okay, so basically, you were there since the beginning of time as far as speech recognition in the modern sense has existed. And so you're in a really, and also, let me just make the other point, which is you're involved in no less, it seems, than 4 startups at the same time. Cobalt, Canary Speech, and then you have Voice Script and an Omnibot. So you sort of have a foot in the past, foot in the present, and a foot in the future. And so you are uniquely positioned to to educate us, a lot of folks out there, in the challenges and the interesting things that are going on or have gone on in speech recognition tech. And so let me stop talking. Let me ask you a question, which
Sure.
is so you've been furiously innovating forever, right? In speech tech, and I don't think people understand just how hard the problem of speech recognition is. If you were to sit down with someone who takes it for granted that they can just launch an Alexa or an assistant or your speech recognition, just talk to it and it does what it does, if you were to just tell them in a nutshell why it's hard, what would you say?
Well, I mean, the fact that it's hard makes it a little bit hard to explain why it's hard because
Exactly.
it's very involved.
Yeah.
But just think about this: that humans are the most evolved creature on the planet, and speech is perhaps our most advanced trait. That is the most evolved. That is, speech is inherently one of the most advanced, difficult, challenging things that happens on the planet. And if you think about even what goes into speech, right? There's the
Mhm.
mental, what's happening in your brain, but then there's also the production of speech through your voice box, your lungs, all of your articulators, the parts of your throat and mouth and lips and teeth that work together to make that, and it happens so quickly without us even um, thinking consciously of what we're doing. We just think a thought and we say the words. It's hard for people to even realize what is going into the production of speech.
Right.
And that's the production of speech. Now, if you want to understand what's going on, now you have to think about, um, how do I tell, the difference between different sounds of the language? How do I tell the difference between different words that sound very similar or confusing? And this just happens automatically for us. When it doesn't go well, that's usually the basis of a pun or a joke
Hmm.
for us.
Hmm.
Um, but usually it just happens. It happens without our being conscious. And so one of the difficult things, the reason people think it might be easy,
Hmm.
is because they don't work hard to do it as a human to
Hmm.
understand speech.
Hmm. Hmm.
Um, but they're not aware of all the complexities that are going on in their brain and in the speech production path that even makes that all possible. Um, but to try to answer that a little, that was a little bit of a philosophical answer. To try to be a little more practical in my answer of what makes speech so hard is you have to understand in you have to be able to hear clearly and understand the difference between the different phonemes or the sounds of the language. And in English, we have, depending on who's counting, we have something like 45 different phonemes, the different
Hmm.
sounds. Like if you look up a word in the dictionary, right, use the
Yeah.
little pronunciation symbols. There's like 45 different symbols for the different sounds of ooh, ah, sh, p, whatever, all the different sounds of
Yeah.
English. So we have to recognize those accurately. We have to recognize those when they are strung together in continuous speech to be able to go fluently from if I say a word like telephone, just to pick a word, I have to recognize the going from the t to the to the o and so forth, just fluently, and then I have to piece together afterwards. Oh, what word was that? And then make sense of it, right? So all of that is super challenging, and it's super challenging to teach computers to do that, because we have to kind of anticipate, what are the different kinds of processing that have to happen to do that. I don't. We could talk for hours about the details.
No, the fact is that it is a difficult problem.
It's very difficult.
And it's taken a long time to. I don't think we can say solve it, but at least make significant progress. So let me ask you this. I think, well, for the longest time, it felt like we were stuck, right? Like we're not going to get there. And let's call that Gen 1, where we valiantly made a lot of effort. And I think we made progress, but it was really small, I'd say small slope, kind of not exponential or significant. But for a long time, we just laboriously tried to get the error rate to be a little bit lower and so on. And then there was, I think there was a moment, or not a moment, but there was something happened that we went to, I think, what I will call more, I think, much more accurate speech recognition. Like I remember when I started using Google at some point, I was just stunned by the fact that I could just say an address, let alone a cat, dog, or whatever words, but an address, right? And it would just get it perfectly, and then it would correct itself and all that. So we did clearly something happened. So maybe you can, what happened really between, let's say, Gen 1 versus Gen 2?
Right. So let me just say that I think it's been more than just one leap forward. It's happened several times. Right. That progress in speech recognition has been marked by these like starts and jumps and stutters, and that it'll go along for a while, and then there'll be some advance, and then there'll be another advance. Probably the biggest advance, the thing that you probably noticed, was probably 10 to 15 years ago. When a major change happened in speech recognition technology, and that is that people in speech recognition discovered an important technique that was being used in image processing, and that is deep neural networks, or deep learning. And this is a process that was really, discovered and developed in image processing to recognize characters or recognize a face or things like that. And people thought, I wonder if there's a way to apply that to speech processing. And it took a couple of years to catch on, but this was in the early 2010s or so, 2008 to 2012, sort of in that range, that people figured out kind of how to use these deep learning techniques for speech processing, and that gave a huge boost to accuracy over the course of maybe 5 years, and it's continued to improve since then, as we've refined the way we use the deep neural networks in representing the acoustic modeling of speech, and it continues today. I think that there will be improvements even over the next 5 or 10 years that are us finding more and better and more expansive ways to use the deep learning techniques in speech processing.
Let me ask you, since this is a question I can't ask of many people, the following: do you, and maybe in my question I'll reveal some ignorance. Do you think that that the way the speech recognition problem is being solved now, which is very heavy data, right? Lots and lots and lots of data to build these nets. Do you think that it makes an assumption, perhaps, that we should divide the world of the, let's call it the signal, right? The signal itself, and how to map that signal to text, from the semantic context. Here's what I mean by that. um, whatever we say, it could be a sentence or a word or an intonation or whatever it may be, is always said within a context of a conversation, or maybe reading something to someone, whatever it may be, right? But it's always in a context that informs what that word is or what that sentence is, both in terms of transcribing it, so the right words come out, but also in terms of meaning, right? So there's no this sort of disjunction between, okay, let's first of all get the text, and then let's just send it to this graph that will bring me meaning, right? It sort of all happens at the same time and informs itself and so on.
Right.
And I think the view out there, amongst folks who look at speech recognition is sort of they divide it. Okay, first we take the audio signal, then it becomes text, and that text is sent to NLP, and then NLP brings back meaning structures. But it feels like that is sort of an artificial way of doing it. What do you think about that?
So we do that as humans as well. We do what you're suggesting, that we have a semantic model of what someone's talking about.
Yeah.
And that influences our understanding of what people are talking about. I'll give you an example that someone just mentioned to me yesterday.
Okay.
They were talking. They had a system. I don't remember which speech recognition system it was, but it was listening to a financial report, and the person talked about the profit of that quarter. But for some reason, the speech recognition had been trained on some religious texts, and so it interpreted it as PROPHET, profit, instead of profit, and that just kind of highlights that the speech recognition doesn't always know what it's listening to. It doesn't know the topic. It doesn't have the big sense of things. And over my 25 years in speech, I have seen repeatedly people trying to crack that problem. How do I tell the speech recognizer? How does it have a model of what it's talking about, so that it knows which words to favor and how to interpret a particular phrase, things like that. But that's really hard. There's been slow progress over these 25 years. You can look back and see, someone made a little progress here and someone made a little progress there, but it's still, I don't think we're at the point, because computers don't fundamentally understand what they're hearing.
Right.
It's their job to turn the audio into words, and it's really hard to build, a world model so that the computer really understands everything about the world, what you're talking about.
Yeah, absolutely. Maybe these neural nets, right? Since many of them are sort of, especially the ones that are domain specific, right? They smuggle some of that, they smuggle some of that, right? So that profit, when we're talking in a religious setting, and it has been trained for religious things, it does the right thing. And perhaps if you train the thing only on financial stuff, right, to never make the mistake of thinking that the profit is PR, right? To always know what it is. So perhaps I don't know. It feels like one way of doing it is just collect a lot more data, which is something we know how to do.
Right. Yeah. So collecting more data, but then you need to have some way for the system to represent, to have an internal representation of. I'm talking about a religious context versus a financial context versus banking or home automation or whatever.
Yeah. I mean, it feels like that's we human beings. That's how we operate, right? We sort of have data, right? And then when we are in, let's say, in a church, right, sort of our ears are perked up for religious things, even if they sound like something normal. And then when we go to a different setting, I'm in a bank or I'm talking about financial, like the data set changes in a way, like it sort of says not that model, it's this model. And maybe that's the kind of stuff that we will. But let me ask you this. So we have now like these massive, big giants out there, Google and Microsoft and Amazon, and all. They have these speech recognition engines that, to be honest with you, I don't think they are that good. To be frank, in terms of are they usable beyond what they do themselves. But how does a company like you differentiate itself against these folks out there? Why would and This question is just to allow you to answer. But why would somebody, say I want to go to Cobalt versus I'm going to plug into Amazon or Google?
Right. Well, so it comes back to this topic we were just talking about.
Yeah.
That one of the advantages to working with a company like Cobalt, where we focus on customization and tuning and fitting the models to the task at hand, is that if we've had people talk to us, for example, about building a religious, a speech recognition for a religious context, and for that we can train it on that, and we can build a model that will be much more accurate than Amazon, Google, Microsoft, whoever else, on a particular domain. If it's for so people come to us when they have particular applications, like it's a call center application for a particular kind of business, or it's command and control of a particular device, or things like that. We almost every application of speech technology is focused and it's not always the best thing to use a general purpose model for a focused application. And so we help people get a focused application, which gives them much better accuracy. And we're also a smaller, more agile, nimble company, so that we can be more flexible in terms of how it's deployed and so forth. So, a lot of people don't want to send their speech into the cloud. And so we can give them a speech recognizer that they can run on their own servers. They don't have to send it to a cloud and hope that some big company isn't going to misuse their data.
Right.
People are very concerned about data privacy and security these days.
Okay, got it. And so, I mean, you worked for Nuance for a while.
For half my career,
half of your career. And I think they were just acquired, right? Like a few months ago by Microsoft?
I'm not sure if it's final yet, but they're in the process.
Oh, it's not even final.
Maybe I haven't been watching it.
Yeah.
But they're in the process of being acquired by Microsoft.
Yeah. Well, let me ask you this, and tell me if you don't want to talk about it, right? Nuance has always had this reputation of being just bad company for this for the speech world. I want people to know that there was a company called Scansoft, which you worked at, right?
Yeah.
And that company acquired a company called Nuance.
Yes.
And then changed its name from Scansoft to Nuance.
Yeah, that's right.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, I spent the first 13 years of my career working at the same job, but through a series of acquisitions and mergers and whatever. I had 5 different business cards by the time this book cleared. And it was an adventure. It was a ride. And the last company that I was working for in this string of acquisitions and so forth was called Nuance. You're right. It was the Scansoft company that acquired Nuance. See, Scansoft had been focused on character recognition, like scanning software.
Right.
And they got more and more into speech, and they realized this is a bad name for a speech company now. So when they acquired Nuance, they said, well, Nuance has a good reputation as a speech company, and it's a more general term. So they changed their name to it's a rare case. The acquiring company.
No, the Nuance name is just it's just beautiful, right?
Yeah.
It's hard to talk about speech without using the word nuance, without even, right? I'm saying
That's
the nuances.
Right.
So it's a great name. So they were competitors for the longest time, I remember, right?
Yeah.
Scansoft and Nuance. And then Scansoft acquired Nuance. I'm sorry. Acquired Nuance and then changed its name. Which of the two technologies was kept? Sure, they didn't merge them or something. Was it mainly Scansoft or was it Nuance?
Well, there were a lot of mergers over the years. There was I started working for Kurzweil Applied Intelligence,
right?
Acquired by a Belgian company, Lernout and Houseby, which then also acquired Dragon Systems.
Right.
So now we had right there. This was way before Nuance. We already had 3 different technologies to merge or choose, and there was some like we kept one engine for
Yeah.
small on-device recognition. We kept another engine for larger scale dictation and so forth. The engine that I sort of stuck with through all of that was the one that came from Dragon Systems, which was, you know, one of the pioneering companies founded by Jim and Janet Baker back in the 80s.
Yep.
And they had very solid technology, and that engine sort of formed the backbone of everything going forward. So when there was a new acquisition, at least for the large vocabulary, the big sort of flagship speech recognition, it would get merged into that Dragon engine. So that then later, when through the next 15 acquisitions, for the most part, you know, we would compare things objectively, and for the most part, what made sense was to take the best bits of the acquired technology and incorporate that into that Dragon engine. I have been gone from there for a dozen years, and so I can't speak about exactly what they've been doing since then, but it would surprise me if that Dragon engine weren't still the sort of the cornerstone of the large vocabulary speech recognition that they're doing.
Yeah. Well, I was asked only because, as you well know, these acquisitions and what happens as a result of them in terms of decisions made about the technology and so forth are not always completely rational, in the sense that there's politics in there and there's turf, and you know, and A may be better than B in terms of an engine, but perhaps the B team is a lot more aggressive in protecting whatever it may be. But you think that it was mainly rational, the right decisions were made?
I think so. I was actually impressed at time after time at how objectively we. Sorry, my dog's getting excited about this too.
So good.
How I was impressed at how objectively we treated each new acquisition, and we carefully found the best pieces to incorporate into it. And I should stress again, my focus there was this large vocabulary dictation engine. There were other speech recognizers at Nuance, still are, for you know, small vocabulary, command and control, something running on your phone, and those were not always related. They were not always based on the same engine. So it might, you know, it happened that that you know, after an acquisition, one engine would be kept for this purpose, but another engine would be kept for another purpose. Yeah.
Okay. So let's talk a bit more about Cobalt and what you guys do.
Yeah.
And to the extent that you can share anything, if you were to say, you know, here is the ideal client that we as a business would love to engage with, right? What would that answer be? Like, what's your ideal customer?
Well, do you know what? There are a couple of ways for me to answer that. On the one hand, I want a customer that's going to pay me a lot of money.
Of course.
Because that way I will.
That's reasonable.
I can, you know, pay my employees, and we can invest in improvements to the technology and so forth. On the other hand, at Cobalt, we take a specific approach that we are a speech company, but we are also kind of a marketplace to bring together top-rated speech researchers, engineers, scientists, and give them interesting problems to work on. And so I'm able to attract the best talent in the industry by having interesting, compelling projects for them to work on. They know that when they come here and they work here, that they're going to be working on really, you know, cutting edge, interesting applications. And so when I look for applications, when I look for customers, one of the things that we do when we're evaluating whether to take on a project is to ask, is there some interesting technology there that will provide something for our researchers to sink their teeth into and make some progress and push things forward. So I'm looking for I'm looking for a customer that will be, profitable, that will, give us a long-term relationship and give us some revenue. But I'm also looking for customers that will give us interesting projects to work on, allow us to make a name for ourselves, and so forth. And we always have a blend of projects at any particular time.
Would you call yourself a product company or a services company?
That's
the question.
That's the big question, and we have decided to try to be both of those. So we are a product company. We have well-established products that are for speech recognition, speech synthesis, conversational interfaces and dialogue, speech analytics, whether it's biometrics or something else. So we have ready to go products that we've licensed to customers in all the key areas of speech technology. At the same time, if that's all we did, we would become stale. And so our services arm is what I was describing, where we're looking for people to challenge us to say, okay, for example, we're talking to people right now where we're working to develop speech recognition in languages that are very minor languages. And so we have to figure out what are the right ways of developing speech recognition technology for languages that are not well served by other providers and so forth. They may not be super profitable right now, but they help keep our techniques on the cutting edge, so I guess what I'm saying is I think there's a synergy between the two, that if you're just a product company, you can become stale. If you're just a services company, it's hard to grow. And so by merging those, we make this very conscious effort to merge those to help us stay relevant and on the cutting edge, and also at the same time, be profitable and support ourselves and grow.
Yeah, makes sense. I'm asking because I do remember the days where and this goes back to Nuance, where Nuance was selling licenses, right?
Yeah.
Licenses, voice XML licenses, and so on. And then was also in deals, right? So they would bid in these deals, right? So once in a while, we're bidding, we are at an RFP, and there's Nuance there.
Yeah.
Since we are using Nuance, there's no way we're going to compete against them because they can sell. They can always, sell less. Expensive than us, right? So we found that annoying. But I don't think you're doing that kind of shenanigans, right? Or maybe you are.
No, we're not. We're
you're not undercutting your customers.
We are not undercutting our customers. No, in fact, we're a small enough company that each customer relationship is important to us, and we consider ourselves pretty loyal to our customers, and we expect some loyalty from them back to us, and it works well that way.
That's great.